All right, let's jump right into this explainer. I want you to think back for a second to when you were in middle school, or maybe just starting out in high school. What were your absolute biggest worries? A pop quiz in math? Figuring out who you were going to sit next to at lunch? Hold on to those memories, because today we are going to completely shatter that modern perspective. We're traveling all the way back to Windham Township, Norfolk County, Canada West, what we now call Ontario, in the year 1855. And we're going to look at a life that makes our modern busy schedules look like a literal vacation.
14. That is the magic number today. At age 14 in 1855, Mary Jane Sovereen was the eldest surviving child of a farming family, and she carried immense responsibilities that would, quite frankly, genuinely shock most modern teenagers. Born in late 1840, Mary Jane had grown up watching her parents carve a fully functioning farm right out of the cleared wilderness. By 14, she wasn't just, doing a few chores to help out. She was a foundational pillar of her family's survival, basically doing the heavy lifting of a full-grown woman. But to really understand Mary Jane, we have to understand the crucible that forged her.
Section 1. The weight of survival. Growing up surrounded by grief. Mary Jane's early years weren't just defined by hard work. They were shaped by an almost unimaginable proximity to loss. By the time she was just 9 years old, she had outlived 4 younger siblings, and all of them died before their 3rd birthdays. First, there was Frederick, who passed at age 3 when Mary Jane was only 5. Then Rosella Elizabeth, who didn't even make it to her 1st birthday. Emma Aunt Anne passed at age 2, and little Rachel lived for only 16 months. Mary Jane had to watch her parents bury baby after baby, so she knew with absolute heartbreaking certainty that life was incredibly fragile. She spent a decade essentially as an only child in a house haunted by empty cradles.
Then, after that decade of being the only child in the house, everything changed. By 1855, she was utterly indispensable to her hardworking father, Alexander, her mother, Elizabeth, who often went by Eliza, and 3 brand-new little sisters, including baby Nancy, who had just been born in February of that year. Her dad was 40, at the absolute peak of his physical powers, and known for his crazy work ethic. Her mom, at 35, was recovering from childbirth. So at 14, Mary Jane wasn't a child to be coddled anymore. With a newborn, a 2-year-old, and a 4-year-old running around, she was a full-on partner in keeping that household afloat.
Part 2. A Pioneer Girl's Education, the One-Room Schoolhouse. Because, believe it or not, despite that massive workload at home, Mary Jane actually did get an education. Things were shifting in Canada West thanks to the 1850 Common Schools Act, pushed by Egerton Ryerson. So Mary Jane went to a local one-room schoolhouse. Picture this: a simple frame or log building, a big central wood stove to keep everyone from freezing, and rows of benches where a single teacher taught kids of all ages at the same time. They used slates and chalk because paper was just way too expensive. She learned the basics: reading, writing, arithmetic, geography of the British Empire, grammar, and needlework. But 14 was pretty much the finish line. Farm girls typically wrapped up their formal schooling by age 15 so they could take up full-time duties back home.
But here's why the education she did get was a total game changer. Thanks to her mom, Mary Jane could read and write, and that was a huge advantage, especially over her father, who actually really struggled with limited literacy. You can imagine how that shifted the dynamic in their home, right? She grew up watching her tough, incredibly capable pioneer dad struggle just to read easily or help the kids with their lessons. So Mary Jane deeply understood the power of being literate. Her mother had passed that gift down to her, and it made Mary Jane an even more vital asset to the family's success.
Section 3. The Relentless Daily Grind. Doing the Work of a Woman. With her schooling wrapping up, what did her day-to-day actually look like? Remember, 0 running water, 0 electricity. I'm going to rapid-fire some of these tasks just to give you a sense of the sheer physical output this 14-year-old was dealing with. She's up at the crack of dawn to fetch heavy buckets of water from the well. She's caring for a newborn and entertaining 2 toddlers while her mom is busy. She's churning butter, which is this hard, repetitive arm workout that could take an hour. She's milking cows morning and night. She's baking bread, sometimes twice a day, because bread was literally the staff of life. Add in weeding the garden, mending clothes by hand, and preserving food. It's just nonstop.
But if you really want to know what exhaustion looks like, we have to talk about laundry day. A typical Monday in 1855 was absolute physical agony. Step 1, you haul massive amounts of water and heat it over a fire. Step 2, you scrub the family's dirty clothes on a washboard using caustic, homemade lye soap. And let me tell you, that stuff would just ravage your hands.
Step 3, you wring out every single heavy, soaking wet item entirely by hand. And finally, Step 4, pressing everything with heavy flat irons heated directly on the wood stove. It was an all-day ordeal of brutal manual labor. Which brings us to Part 4, Faith, Fun, and Community, Finding Joy in the Pioneer World.
Because it's absolutely crucial to note that her life wasn't just endless toil. The Strict Baptist Church in Delhi and local farm events were massive social lifelines. Work actually doubled as entertainment at community bees. The women and girls would get together for quilting bees, which was basically the best way to catch up on neighborhood gossip. During barn raisings or when the threshing machines arrived, Mary Jane and her mom would cook these massive, exhausting feasts for the crews, but it was incredibly social and fun. And evening corn huskings? Well, they even held a little romantic excitement. Local traditions said if you found a rare red ear of corn, you were entitled to a kiss.
Beyond all that, she found so much joy in simple pleasures. Picture the family gathered around the fire on a freezing winter evening, singing hymns, or listening to her dad Alexander tell vivid stories. Like the hilarious time her grandfather Frederick scared their neighbor John McCall by perfectly mimicking wolf howls. In the summer, berry picking was this wonderful excuse to get outside with friends. Winter brought exhilarating, fast, chaperoned sleigh rides. And then there was the Norfolk County Agricultural Fair, where earning a ribbon for your preserves or your needlework was the ultimate bragging right.
Section 5. A brief, meaningful legacy. The hinge between girlhood and adulthood.
All of this, the incredible domestic skills, the resilience, the sheer character she forged in 1855, it perfectly prepared her for what came next. On March 10, 1861, at the age of 20, Mary Jane married James Abraham Kemp. She stepped into a household of her own, and she was entirely equipped to manage a pioneer farm. I mean, how could she not be? She had practically been running one since she was 14.
Tragically, though, her story gets cut incredibly short. 33. That is how old Mary Jane was when she died in 1874. She left 5 of her own children behind. It's a really sobering reminder of the harsh realities and the medical limitations of the 19th century. For all her incredible strength and capability, that fragility of life she learned about as a little girl ultimately claimed her far, far too soon.
But zooming back to 1855, there's a quote from the source text that just beautifully captures where she stood. She was at this vibrant, vital hinge point in her brief but wildly impactful life. The text says she was alive to all of it, the work, the love, the loss already known, the future not yet imagined, a pioneer earl growing into a pioneer woman. I just love that. It perfectly sums up a young person rising up to meet the intense demands of her time.
So, I'll leave you with this to think about as we wrap up this explainer. Think about the intense childhood grief she processed, that grueling lye-soap laundry on Mondays, hauling heavy buckets of water by hand, and carrying the massive responsibility of keeping a family afloat. Forget about modern conveniences for a second. How would you measure up to the reality of being 14 in 1855? It really makes you appreciate the crazy resilience of the human spirit, and, maybe it makes you a little more grateful for your washing machine today. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive into the past. Keep learning, and I'll catch you on the next one.